Hey, what's going on everybody? It's Dom from Lensprotogo and Lens Rentals, and welcome back to the channel. I'm super excited to bring you this week's video because this week I got my hands on a RED Komodo 6K. So in this video, I'm just gonna briefly go over the features of the Komodo inside and out, and then I'm gonna show you some test footage I was able to get with this camera too. So with that being said, let's dive in. Okay, so let's talk about the body of the Komodo first. First, I'll say that if you can't already tell by looking at it, this is not part of the DSMC2 family of RED brains. It's an entirely new form factor, and that means it gets all of its own accessories, and I'm almost certain that no accessory from the DSMC2 family will work on the Komodo. It's pretty much exactly a 4-inch cube and weighs just over 2 pounds. On the top, you get a 2.9-inch touchscreen, which is really great, and I'll talk about that a bit more. And for these buttons on the sides, you get a menu button, up and down arrows, a select button, and a media button. And above that screen are the threads and contacts for several other RED accessories that can be tethered for camera control, like a side grip or a top handle. On the left side is the media gate for one CFast 2.0 card, and below that is a 3.5mm headphone and mic jack. Also, this is where the exhaust vent is, and if you put your eye up to it, you can actually look right through the body of the camera. So I can already tell that the airflow and heat management of the Komodo is probably really great. On the right side of the camera, you get a power switch, a small record button, and a discrete antenna for all its wireless functions. And finally, the vent for the fans is right here on this side too. Moving on to the back of the Komodo, we have 2 slots for Canon BP9 series batteries, like what's found in the C300, each with their own large red eject button. And under that we have some ports, one for the expander module, one SDI, and one for DC power input. On the front of the camera is a tally light, the RF lens mount, and behind that lens mount is a 6K Super 35 19.9 megapixel CMOS sensor, supposedly capable of 16 stops of dynamic range. And for the bottom of the Komodo, you get a 3/8 thread, a 1/4 20 thread, and some sweet stars, which helps secure the base expander. So that's what's on the body of the Komodo, which itself is pretty bare bones, but after all, this type of camera is really best suited to be built up at least a little bit, and probably the jumping off point for that is going to be with the base expander module. The expander module threads right into the bottom of the camera and connects by this short cable. This expander will give you access to timecode, Genlock, GPI, and camera control via this 4-pin port. It also gives you way more threads across the sides of it for attaching accessories. Okay, before we look at some test footage, let's quickly talk about some internal features of the Komodo. So just like on any other previous RED, you have the option of shooting RED RAW files or Apple ProRes files. For those RED files, they ditch the compression ratios and just give you the option of high, medium, and low quality recording modes. Those RED files are interesting too. In the file folder, you'll notice that the camera splits your clip into 2.5 gigabyte segments, but in your editing program, say Premiere, you only have to drag in one of those into the bin and it reads it as the whole clip. So this is sort of like their way of consolidating the RED RAW workflow, which works really nicely. And I don't edit on a top-of-the-line computer, and it handled these medium quality RED RAW files really well. The highest frame rate the Komodo is capable of is 120 frames per second in 2K, 60 frames per second in 4K, and 40 frames per second in 6K, which I'm a little bummed out about because when I think of a RED camera, I think high resolutions and slow frame rates, and you just don't really get that with the Komodo, which is honestly something I was kind of expecting. Here's one thing that's absolutely huge though and makes me forget all about the lack of high frame rates. Global shutter. The Komodo has a global shutter readout, which means entire frames get read out one at a time. And this completely eliminates video artifacts that you would get from a normal shutter that reads out frames line by line, the major one being rolling shutter. There's a pre-roll function on the Komodo, which I think makes perfect sense for the type of shooting you're probably going to be doing with the Komodo. And in high resolution RED RAW recording modes, this only gets you a second or two of pre-record, but it bumps up a bit if you're shooting in ProRes or you drop the resolution down. The Komodo is capable of autofocus, but I haven't been able to test that out yet because because on my model, that function is still in beta. But I am really curious to see how that autofocus works, especially when paired with these new RF mount Canon lenses. Another thing I want to mention is navigating through the menu with the touchscreen LCD is a super awesome experience. I love the menu layout on the Komodo, like a lot. It's super intuitive, and I think if you're an absolute beginner with cameras, you could learn your way around the Komodo pretty easily. Even in playback, you can use the LCD to scrub through your shot just like on previous REDs, which I really love. There's also plenty of exposure, focus, and color tools too that you can use, and you have full control over whether those are shown over the LCD or SDI. The LCD is absolutely awesome, but it is only 3 inches large and it's totally fixed to the top of the camera. So with that being said, this camera really does benefit from using an external recorder. Okay, a few small last things I want to mention. There's a lot of internal data about media and power, which I really appreciate, and there's a whole section of the menu for dialing in some presets, and if I owned the Komodo, I would definitely set up at least one shooting preset. Lastly, if you have the V1.5.0 firmware update for the Komodo, that will give the Komodo access to Wi-Fi connectivity, FTPS remote offloading, and live stream support. Okay, so I think I've talked about this thing enough. Now, I'm going to show you some test footage I was able to get with the RED Komodo 6K.
Content crazy. All good, dude.
So I hope you enjoyed some of that sweet mountain biking footage, and I want to thank my friend Ethan for ripping it up for me out there so I could really test the Komodo in a scenario that I can see it being used for. As I was using it out there, I couldn't help but think that this is probably the perfect gimbal camera. And after my short time with it, I can already tell it has huge potential and is hugely versatile. So if you have any questions or insights about the RED Komodo 6K, definitely drop a comment in the comment section because I'm really curious to hear what your thoughts are on this thing. Also, if you happen to like this video, hit that thumbs up button down below to let me know you liked it. And if you're not already, subscribe to the channel, and that way you'll be in the loop whenever we post new content, which is every week. So take care, and we'll see you in the next one.